Welcome to Brian's Table, a food, wellness, and lifestyle channel. I'm Brian Singh, and today we tackle the cauliflower. Yep, cauliflower. It's having a renaissance. Look at keto diets, it's ever present there. If you look at the Mediterranean diet and other plant-based diets, which have become quite popular, cauliflower is present there too. It's showing up all over the place as a protein and a carbohydrate replacement. It's showing up on menus. For instance, you can find it at most pizza places where they offer a cauliflower crust. On some of the vegan restaurants that you may be going to, you'll see it being offered up as a steak. It's a very versatile vegetable. It brings a nice earthiness to whatever dish you want to use it in. But also, it's a great platform to absorb a lot of other flavors. Today, we're going to be making a cauliflower soup. It's super simple, and with a bit of specialized equipment and a few techniques, you'd be very proud to serve this at your next dinner party. And stick around to the very end when we use cauliflower in a usual way that you would not expect. Let's start with the ingredients. First, obviously cauliflower. Cauliflower, let's get into some facts about it. It's about 2% protein, 2% fiber, a ton of vitamin C. Cauliflower is pretty resilient. When everything else in your crisper has rotted away, cauliflower will survive. While it isn't the cheapest of vegetables, when it goes on sale, because of its resilience, make sure you pick up an extra one. The other ingredients include onions, butter. We use potatoes for this particular recipe, but as you get more comfortable with it, you could use other root vegetables. The reason why we do that is because this brings a creaminess to this dish. And then we round it off with a bit of white pepper. Don't use black pepper for this. Black pepper is too sharp for such a subtle, rich soup. Pinch of nutmeg, standard chicken stock, and a bit of salt. That's it. Super simple. Next up, let's prepare the cauliflower. I like to use two knives for this. A chef's knife and a paring knife. First, I use the paring knife to cut around the stalk. As you can see, I most probably had this in the crisper for a week or so. Guilty! And what I do is I cut around like that, and I remove the woody stem. After, I just go and get all the leaves and remove those. And after that, because we're making soup, you don't have to be too careful about things. You could just break this up quite easily, like that. I would also encourage you, if you see any dark spots on the cauliflower, just cut them off. And that's where the paring knife is also handy. I'm going to put aside a few florets for that something special that I talked about earlier. Here's a little trivia about cauliflower for you. As I have a background in statistics, I am a bit of a math geek. The way that cauliflower grows follows a mathematical formula. Specifically, it follows one that fractals follow. As you can see, this part is a bigger version of this part, which is a bigger version of this part. And that's the nature of how fractals work. Here's that special treat. First of all, you cut your cauliflower into smaller florets. That's about a good size. And put it in the bowl. Next, I add Ethiopian, yes, Ethiopian, berbere or berbere spice. It's a warm spice blend. Has a bit of cardamom in it, a bit of cinnamon, and it smells a bit like garam masala, but it adds a lot of good flavor to cauliflower. I put that here. Good couple hearty tablespoonfuls. Toss it around. Then I add a little bit of buttermilk. Buttermilk, because of its acidity, makes this marinade work. Last thing, a pinch of salt. You can put that in a bag and let it marinate overnight, but 5-6 hours, you'll be good to go. And then we're going to put that in the oven and roast it. What's in Burberry spice? There are so many different recipes. Let's check this one here. Daring Gourmet. Coriander seed, cumin seed, fenugreek seeds, black peppercorns, allspice berries, cardamom pods, cloves, red chilies, sweet paprika, salt, nutmeg, ginger, and cardamom with a bit of turmeric. That's what's in Burberry spice. And if you don't have access to those spices, just use something like garam masala. First up, onions. We're going to peel and dice these, and then we're going to cook them long and slow while we prepare the other ingredients. Here's my tip on cutting up onions. I cut them in half from end to end, and then I grab the end, and that comes off easily. Trim the end, and then I cut them from end to end. But onions offer a guide on how to cut end to end. So just follow those lines. Then cut from side to side, and you get a perfect dice every time. We start by sauteing the onions on low. This soup is very forgiving, so there's a huge margin of error. So don't sweat it if you're not doing everything perfectly. We use about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter. And because this recipe is so forgiving, you could add your onions at this point. Give them a healthy pinch of salt. And we cook that low and slow for about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, let's get to the rest of the prep. With the cauliflower cut and the onion sauteing, let's get to the potatoes. Just simply peel potatoes and dice them. Let's check in on the onions. All right. They're sweating nicely, but we want to take them to the point where they're translucent. Once peeled, let's quarter these guys. Maybe cut them into eighths. That's a perfect size. As I said before, as you get more comfortable with this recipe, you could add more potato, you could add parsnip. Parsnip adds a lovely flavor to this. I like including leeks, as well as you could do a variation with broccoli. The opportunities to modify the soup are endless. All you need to do is just follow the same principles, and you'll get a perfect soup every time. Great. We're at that point where the onions are now translucent. We can increase the temperature to just above medium. There's a little bit of the butter starting to fry. At this point, let's add our potatoes and our cauliflower. Add a little bit more salt, because again, you gotta salt your food. Doesn't require a lot. And now we're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I like the nutmeg because it adds a nice earthiness, which I find complements the earthiness of the cauliflower quite well. At this point, we also add the stock. You want to add just enough stock to come up to the level where it almost covers the vegetables. The vegetables are going to spring some water on their own, which will add to the richness of the soup. You want to bring this to a boil and then let it simmer for about 15-20 minutes until the cauliflower is soft and fully cooked. With the cauliflower and potatoes almost done, let's get to the next stage of blending the soup. You can either blend the soup in the pot by using a immersion blender, but if you want to make this soup special, you need something with some serious horsepower. You got to get a Vitamix. If you're going to get serious about cooking and you can't afford it, buy one of these. This one is now 16 years old, and I use it almost every day. The only thing I've changed is I've gotten a new canister, but the base unit still working like a charm. I've had friends who've asked me, what would you recommend? I always tell them Vitamix. They go out and buy something different, but they all come around to getting a Vitamix eventually. So shortcut the process, save your money, buy a Vitamix. And I've included a link in the description below on where to get it. For this special treat, all you need is your toaster oven, and just get a baking dish, line it with foil, get some olive oil. Yeah, get your hands in there. Oh yeah, nice and greasy. I like to add a bit of salt to the marinated cauliflower. I didn't want to add it earlier because it would just make it too salty, and with this way it's going to just coat and season the cauliflower nicely without making it too briny and saline. Make sure that they're well coated before they go on. The sauce will burn a bit, but that would add a lot of flavor because, like most brassicas, they could take a bit of charring, which adds to their deliciousness. I'll start by putting it in for about 40 minutes at 400. Keep an eye on it. If it starts to burn, just turn it over. I will turn it over at about 30 minutes, and I'll see where things are at, and we could just enjoy the roasted cauliflower after. I'm going to add that I like keeping roasted cauliflower around because it's great on its own. You could also blend it with chickpeas and make a roasted cauliflower hummus. And with this version, it adds a lot of deliciousness with those spices. And they would not be in conflict with the other lemon and tahini that you use in hummus. So it is really a very hearty dip. I also like putting them in salads too. Let's see how this comes out. Great. The veggies are cooked. You can tell because they're soft and everything is just starting to break apart. That means it's ready to be blended. Let's get the veggies into the blender. I always start with a slotted spoon. That way I'm able to get all of the solids out of the pot and into the blender. Once we get to this point here, I'm just going to dump everything into the blender up to the maximum fill line. One of the reasons why I separate out the solids from the liquid to start is that most people do not have a large canister for their blender. So you can also, after you've put a few solids in here, strain out the liquid, but you want to keep the liquid because it has a lot of flavor, and blend with what you need and just a little bit of liquid. I can get away with it because I have a Vitamix, I know, and that way when we're done you can bring it all back together. But we're just going to blend this all in one go. When you start blending a soup or anything, you always want to start it on slow. Make sure that you're able to see everything starting to come in and get blended, and then increase the speed. And once you get a vortex going, let her rip. One of the benefits of the Vitamix is it gets the soup super smooth, but it's not smooth enough just yet. We have one more step. Make sure you wash out your pot before you return the soup to it. That way you're going to make sure there's no residue or little bits that are going to reduce the smoothness of your soup. I did say the soup was very technique driven. We need to strain the soup. While we could use the fancy French chinoise, which will give you a super silky soup, a standard household strainer will do the job just as well. Just put it over your pot and let's strain the soup. See how beautifully the Vitamix gets this soup? And that's what you're aiming for. That luxurious texture. If you've noticed, we have not added any cream to the soup. The only dairy in this soup is butter. And that actually is good enough. If you want to make this soup creamier, you can add cream. One thing I like to do is to add a bit of creme fraiche and a bit of chive. How we're going to serve it today is as is, with a little bit of dill on it. This soup also freezes beautifully. So put it in your freezer and have it for whenever you're ready to entertain. It is also a multitasker. If you can make it thicker and use it as a sauce, it's wonderful to just put a dollop on a plate, do that schmear that you see in expensive restaurants, and put a fresh salad with a bit of grilled salmon on it. Heaven. Do you want to put some music at this point? Cover me up in my blah, blah, blah. Beautiful. And for a little added richness, a little touch of olive oil, which makes it look very elegant. Let's give it a try. Oh yeah. That's really good. I hope you give this recipe a try. It is one of my go-tos, and if you just follow the principles of it, you can make almost any root vegetable in combination with any brassica, or even adding a touch of legumes to make a lovely soup that will impress anyone. Question: what is your go-to soup when you're having a dinner party? Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you like what you see, hit the like button and please subscribe. And in the meantime, keep maximizing life's small pleasures. All right. Oh, we have something else to show you. Whew. Excellent. So our roasted cauliflower is done. Let's give it a go. Insane flavor. Lots of cauliflower. Got those berbere spices, heat at the back end, and a wonderful meaty texture. I love to have this in a salad. Now give it a go, Trent. Use your hand. Food always tastes better when it comes from your hand. Not good? So simple.
Who knew cauliflower could be that good?
The buttermilk is there and gives it a little bit of tang, doesn't it? I like to do this marinade overnight. I know we did this for a few hours, but overnight and a little bit more of a char, this stuff is pure perfection. This really is a great way of using cauliflower. It's great as an appetizer, as a meze with Middle Eastern dips, or as I said, with a salad. If you get a little bit more daring, you could even add it as a topping on stews. Give it a go. Hope you enjoy it.